everybody, welcome to week 10 of class. Can you believe it? So as always, I just want to do kind of a little recap of the week we just had and then look forward to our current week and then a little bit beyond that as well. So of course, last week in week 9, we talked about learning transfer. As I hope that you understood as we were going over that topic, it's something that quite honestly doesn't get as much attention as it should. There's just kind of an assumption of you learned it, you're going to be able to transfer it. But the reality is you really need to think carefully when you are planning and facilitating a lesson or a workshop or a training, how to ensure that transfer happens. So even though we only covered that for 1 week, I do hope that's something that kind of stuck with you. One of the things that you were asked to do in the discussion, this was the one where everybody shared a different resource about learning transfer, was to read over a few of those resources and then come up with, kind of your ideas on, oh, this is what learning transfer can look like or can mean for me. Here's what I would need to do. And some of you got to the point of doing that. And I think some of you were at the point of still, kind of digesting the information and reading some of the resources, which is fine. But I would encourage you to please not ignore that step of what really is important to me, what ideas, what concepts, what methods of learning transfer are useful for me. So if you didn't have a chance to do that in the discussion, that would be an excellent thing for you to work on during some of your weekly reflections coming up. So I would encourage you to do that. So looking at this week, we are going to start our first of 2 weeks of really digging into this book, The Enhancing Adult Motivation to Learn by Vlodkowski and Ginsburg. Specifically, we'll be looking at their motivational framework, their culturally responsive motivational framework, which has 4 different aspects to it. So our discussion this week, by design, is not really very much of a barn building discussion. This is more of an understanding and a knowledge check for each of you to see that you have kind of a decent handle on those 4 aspects of the motivational framework. So there's probably not going to be a ton of back and forth and discussion. I'm not going to cut that off. I would love if you would want to do that. But the expectation is really for you to understand those 4 aspects of the motivational framework this week. And then next week, we'll continue our work on the motivational framework by looking at each of those 4 aspects and specific strategies to meet the aspect, whether it's inclusion or engendering confidence or competence, whatever it may be. I will probably say the same thing next week, but please, when you get to next week's readings, there's 4 chapters, 1 on each of the aspects of the framework. And really what those chapters are a list of different strategies. Please, please, please don't feel that you need to read every single strategy and memorize them in any sort of depth. I would encourage you rather to go through them quickly, skim them, and then dig into the ones that seem most relevant to your needs and to your learning and teaching situation. So approach the reading next week like that. This week, go ahead and read the readings in depth because it's, like I said, it's that foundation to the motivational framework. So once we get past, we're currently in week 10, we'll continue the framework in week 11. Once we get past week 11, you really have all of the big things that you need to know for this class. So of course, we talked about objectives, ways of learning, teaching methods, learning transfer, and then motivation. All of those things are going to come together in the culmination of your team project. Your team facilitation and team project that you're putting together is your evidence of being able to actually apply and integrate all of those into a single lesson. So I think that's pretty obvious, but I just wanted to make sure that I pointed that out to you. Yeah, so of course, keep working on that. I've met with several teams or had emails with several teams. Any support that I can give you towards working on that project, I'm always happy to do that. Of course, we also have your toolkits that you're working on, as well as maybe not quite yet, but you might want to start thinking about revising your teaching philosophy as well for the second version of that. So kind of semester-long projects that are getting a little bit closer to the end. So continue to work on those. Let me know how I can support you with those, and looking forward to digging into the motivational framework this week.